Listen closely, for this is a story not of a monster from the deep, nor a meteor from the sky, but of a silent, insidious force that dwells within us, the tendency to ignore what we don't want to see. It's a tale of a city, a marvel of human ingenuity, and the quiet voices that tried to warn it, voices that were, for a time, drowned out by the roar of ambition and the whisper of convenience. Our story begins in the bustling coastal city of Portsmouth, a place reborn. For decades, it had grappled with the relentless fury of the sea, each passing year bringing more violent storms, higher tides, and deeper anxieties. Then came Aegis, the Great Barrier, a colossal testament to human engineering. Aegis stretched 4 miles, a gleaming wall of reinforced concrete and advanced hydrodynamics, promising an impenetrable shield against the ocean's wrath. Its completion was met with jubilant celebrations, hailed as the dawn of a new era for Portsmouth. Homes were rebuilt closer to the shore, businesses flourished, and a collective sigh of relief swept through the population. The city felt safe, invincible even, under the watchful gaze of Aegis. At the heart of Aegis's design and ongoing monitoring was Dr. Thorn, a man whose mind hummed with the intricate language of geology, fluid dynamics, and structural integrity. Thorn was not just an engineer. He was an artist of resilience, a poet of preventative measures. He knew Aegis intimately. Every bolt, every sensor, every simulated stress point. He had poured years of his life into its creation, and now he poured just as much into its vigilant observation. His counterpart, Mr. Arthur Finch, was the charismatic head of the city's infrastructure department. Finch was a visionary in his own right, a master of logistics and public relations, who had championed Aegis from concept to completion. He saw it as his legacy, a symbol of Portsmouth's indomitable spirit, and a cornerstone of his own flourishing career. It began subtly, as these things often do. Thorn's advanced monitoring systems, designed to detect even the faintest whispers of instability, started to register anomalies, minute seismic tremors, barely perceptible, far below the threshold of human sensation, yet recurring with an unsettling rhythm. Unusual fluctuations in the deep-water pressure sensors, moments where the hydrodynamic flow seemed to momentarily lose its equilibrium. Microscopic stress fractures, detected by ultrasonic scans deep within the concrete, appearing in patterns that deviated from the expected material fatigue. Thorn, ever the scientist, meticulously compiled his data. He ran simulations, cross-referenced historical weather patterns, and consulted with his team of equally dedicated engineers. The picture that emerged was not one of immediate, catastrophic failure, but of a creeping, systemic vulnerability. The barrier, though magnificent, was showing signs of distress. He presented his findings to Mr. Finch and the City Council with the calm, measured tone of a man delivering a complex diagnosis. His reports were thick with graphs, data points, and predictive models. But the reception was cool. Finch, already envisioning a prestigious international conference hosted in Portsmouth, showcasing Aegis, listened with a polite but increasingly dismissive air. "Dr. Thorn," he began, a practiced smile on his face, "we appreciate your diligence. Truly. But these tremors, these microfractures, they seem incredibly minor. Are we not talking about fractions of a millimeter? Is the evidence truly conclusive enough to warrant alarm? The cost of an unscheduled, city-wide structural audit on a structure barely a year old would be astronomical. Not to mention the optics." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Thorn's warnings were downplayed, dismissed as overly cautious, too minor, lacking the kind of undeniable, glaring evidence that would force immediate action. The collective mood in the room, driven by Finch's confident demeanor, leaned towards an unspoken consensus. It will be fine. The city was thriving. Investments were pouring in, and the idea that their shining symbol of safety could be flawed was simply inconvenient. The process of dismissal wasn't always outright rejection. Sometimes, Thorn's initial signs were simply ignored, filed away in a digital archive, or delayed for further review that never quite materialized. Other times, they were reinterpreted in a reassuring way. Normal settling. One consultant, hand-picked by Finch, declared with an air of authority, referring to the seismic tremors. expected material behavior, another echoed about the microscopic fractures, attributing them to the natural curing process of the concrete. The unusual water pressure fluctuations, sensor calibration issues. They concluded, despite Thorne's vehement protests and rigorous each potential red flag was gently, systematically, and confidently folded into a narrative of normalcy, pushing the problem further down the road, closer to a point where it would be beyond control. The city, seduced by its newfound security and the economic boom, allowed itself to believe the comforting lies. But the warning signs, like persistent ghosts, refused to stay buried. They recurred not always in the exact same patterns, making them easy to label as exceptions. A new type of stress point emerged near the deepest anchoring pylons. Different from the initial micro-fractures, the seismic tremors shifted their epicenter slightly, suggesting a deeper, more distributed strain. Thorne and his frontline team, now joined by younger, equally sharp engineers like Anya Sharma, found themselves in a growing internal conflict with the decision. Anya, with her fresh perspective and unburdened by past political allegiances, saw the patterns emerging with frightening clarity. She supported Thorne, adding her own meticulously gathered data, but their combined efforts were met with increasing frustration. "You're seeing problems where none exist," Finch would often sigh. "Exasperated you're overthinking it. Doctor, this is an engineering marvel, not a ticking time bomb." The chasm between the frontline experts, who understood the nuances of the data, and the decision-makers who prioritized perception and immediate economic gains, widened into a gulf. The pressures were immense. Portsmouth was gearing up to host the Global Climate Resilience Summit, with Aegis as its crowning glory, a symbol of humanity's triumph over nature. Millions of dollars had been invested. Reputations were on the line. The mayor, facing re-election, couldn't afford a whisper of doubt about the city's flagship project. The never-happened-before mindset became a powerful shield against uncomfortable truths. "No major barrier of this design has ever failed in this way," was a common refrain, conveniently ignoring the fact that no barrier of this design had ever been subjected to the unique and evolving stresses Thorne was observing. The cost of admitting a flaw, even a minor one, seemed to high the cost of doing nothing, however, was incalculable. Then came the forecast. Not just a storm, but a superstorm, unprecedented in its projected intensity and trajectory. Hurricane Poseidon, Te Kayadit, a fitting name for a force that threatened to mock human endeavors. Thorne, his face grim, made one final, desperate plea. His models, now incorporating the ignored anomalies, painted a terrifying picture. Aegis, under this specific confluence of wind, wave, and tide, combined with its underlying, unaddressed vulnerabilities, might not hold. He presented a detailed emergency plan, advocating for immediate partial evacuations, the deployment of supplementary flood defenses, and critical, last-minute structural reinforcements. Finch listened, his face pale, but his resolve remained tragically firm. The economic disruption of an evacuation, the public panic, the humiliation, just weeks before the summit. It was too much. It was too much. "We have Aegis, Dr. Thorne," he declared, his voice strained but authoritative. "It was built for this. We will implement standard storm protocols. No more, no less." As Hurricane Poseidon made landfall, the city braced itself. For a few agonizing hours, Aegis held a magnificent wall against the raging sea. But then, the previously dismissed data began to manifest in horrifying reality. The minor seismic tremors amplified into violent shudders that rattled the very foundations of the barrier. The expected material behavior became gaping fissures, spiderwebbing across the concrete, weeping salt water. The sensor calibration issues were revealed as catastrophic pressure points, buckling sections of the barrier inward. The tipping point arrived with a deafening roar as a section of Aegis, weakened by the relentless assault and its own internal, unaddressed flaws, began to crumble. The sea, long held at bay, surged through the breach, unleashing its fury upon the unprepared city. Chaos erupted. Emergency actions were taken, but they were no longer preventative. They were reactive, desperate attempts to mitigate a disaster that could have been averted. The city, once so secure, found itself battling the very force it had believed conquered. Lives were lost, homes were destroyed, and the economic damage was immense. Aegis, the proud shield, stood broken, a stark monument to ignored warnings. In the aftermath, amidst the ruble and the Dr. Thorne walked through the devastated streets, his heart heavy. His data, once dismissed as alarmist, was now terrifyingly clear, vindicated by tragedy. The opportunities for early intervention had been real, the warnings undeniable. The question that remains, echoing through the silence of the damaged city and into the corridors of power, is not whether we see AN find the warnings, but whether we will finally learn to heed them. Will we ever truly listen to the quiet voices of truth, or will we continue to let ambition, convenience, and the siren song of "it will be fine" lead us to the precipice, time and time again? The answer, my friends, lies not in the data, but in our willingness to hear.